trading like crazy. Bitcoin long, but knew I should have kept it longer. So guys, if you're not in the Discord, don't forget to check out the link in the bio. There's plenty of information here that's going out to get you guys set up. But let's cover some basics here, real simple stuff. First things first, where do you start off with a coin that you get in? I have a 45-minute box here. So these are basics in trading, man. Welcome to the live, guys. Don't forget to share the live. And what you guys should do is actually pull up the live and share the live and comment on the live while we're chilling. Alright, let's see here. So we're going to start off here by taking a look at these new coins, seeing how they're, where's the best time frames to get into, where to buy, and find patterns that make sense. This coin is a $25 coin, so it's a pretty good margin on the coin there. Don't forget to follow, guys. Share the live. We're about to dig into some coins here and find simple patterns for you guys to find simple ways to make very simple trades. And this will get you guys set up here. So overall, first thing we want to do is kind of like get ourselves squared away. There's always support. There's always resistance. That is a simple aspect of trading. Where's my support? Where's my resistance? Basically, let's see if I can get some of that for you there. So historically, you don't really need to go back too far. Most people start with a 4-hour, and the 4-hour just allows them to kind of have an ideal of an overall pullback for at least 6 to 8 months that they can look at and kind of have an overall setup on. And this is where you can kind of set yourselves up for your support and resistance areas. I don't normally trade back that far if I'm doing like trading, because I'm not really setting up to where I'm doing a long-term hold or anything like that. What we're doing here is just basically day trading the levels. So you can see here you have your levels set up. There's levels all across here, tops, peaks, bottoms, and you can set those up any way you want. This is more like overall where people think it's going to go, and etc. So what we're looking for here, this is what you'd be doing if you guys were setting up bigger trades, and you'd be looking for these levels, and then the next part of that is them hitting these levels, right? So that's something you can look at. Me, what I like to see is I look for the spikes, these bigger spikes in these areas, and then I go back and I find historically what are causing these spikes, right? So for me, I like to do trading zones, right? So trading zone is simple. If I have this movement here, this is part of the original movement. There's a big spike in this area here. Then the next moves as we kind of go through here. Every time there's a big pullback, I like to see where these spikes come out of, and then each one of those spikes is something that I'm going to review. So I'm just going to mark here where we have these jumps inside the trades. These are basically what we call trading zones, right? So now once we get to that level there, I'm going to start looking more closely into the trading zones that are more in my area, which we've been trading lately, because this is going to give me an ideal of what really matters in here. So these are the breakdowns of these sections here. And now we're going to go back and take a look at these overall. So those are the 4 hours. So now we're going to pull up an indicator here, guys, the moon indicator. And then what this is going to do for us is just set this up to where we're actually going into a long here. We have a 4 hour. Let me take a look at this. So we do have a 4 hour coming up here. And let me see about this trade here. And this is where we're working ourselves into a trade right now. We want to work into trades that are called moons. And this looks like we're getting a 4 hour moon trade right now, which is what we want to trade into. So this is hype. If you want, on my other PC, on the side is that the clicker thing. It has a 3-prong cord on it. You can unplug it, bring it, and plug it right there. You ain't gotta do that. It's automatic. Alright, so now let's get ourselves into a trade here because we're moving pretty quick. So we're gonna go and take a look here. So we're gonna look for this lower piece here. The first pullback that we're looking for is about 33.65. I'm gonna get some bonus in here real quick, the rewards. So anytime you guys get into a trade, the easiest thing to get into a trade is basically waiting for your trade to pull back, right? So step number 1 is getting the best price for your trade. So right now we're gonna look at getting our best price for hype. Position, oh, I should have moved that, okay. That's all good. All right, hype. Alright, so currently on hype, we can see that we want some pullback pricing here, right? So we're going to slide over to the 10-minute, and what we're going to do on the 10-minute here is we're going to look for lower entries, right? So the best entries for us. So currently right here, if you're drawing your lines, you can see right here, guys, you have your lines going up. Let me zoom in a little bit there for you guys so you're a little less glare for you. What up, Tony? Right, so we have our channel that's moving up and down here. You can see the perforated lines. And what we want here is we want to get in on the pullback, right? So this pullback that we're going to be looking for, we're going to be looking for these lower levels here, right? So something in this level here. So the very first trade that we're going to be looking for price wise, it's probably going to be about 32.30, right? So let's go back, take a look, and then we can see here on the 10-minute we have our lines across. I'm going to go down to a 2-minute to see where that pullback would be for the 2-minute, and you can see that we're sitting on one of the lines right here. Parallel lines right there. You can see it's starting to chip away. You see that, how it's hitting up, down, up, down, up, down, and now it's chipping away to maybe breaking down because it's not getting a lot of momentum to the upside here. So it looks like it's slowly, what this would be consolidation, right? So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking for the best entry here, which would be somewhere across this line. So somewhere across this middle line, and the next section would be this line here as it continues, right? So these are the 2 points that we're going to be looking for entry. So it's either going to touch base here and go up, or it's going to touch base down here and go up. So these are our 2 areas of interest. We're either going to get a price at $33.65, or we're going to get an entry price somewhere down here at $33. So these are the 2 areas that we're looking for here based on volume and how it looks. So now what we can do here is, did you find it?
That's right. That's right.
Turn on the PC. All right. Huh? Scoot in, brother.
I'm not gonna sit.
Huh?
I'm not sitting.
Oh, you want to stand? Stand up, brother. All right, so cool. I'm out. So it looks like we're getting a little momentum here. So we just have to check for our volume, right? So first thing we want to do is take a look at our 15 minute and our 30. You can see here the 30 is pushing up. 15 minutes at the top. 10 minutes pushing up. So anything that we want is a pullback. We can see that we have a slight pullback on the 5 minutes, which is going to give us our opportunity for our entry. That's going to be what's important to us. And then we want to be trading with our hour. So right now our hour is headed up. Our 2 hour is bending to the top side on the RSI. And our 4 hour is about to hit a 4 hour moon. So we have a lot of momentum here for this trade. So now the question is, how do we cost average buy into this to get ourselves the best position here, right? So we still have the 5 minute pushing down. So that's what that's going to look like as far as like, is it up?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to look like as far as like, let's hit that little button right there. Let me get it.
See?
Yeah, hold on. So that's where the entry is going to be important here. So right now we have a pullback that we're going to use for our entry, right? So this is where we're going to want to get in here. This is the area. So 35.65 is probably going to be the one we're going to end up with, just because most of these pullbacks that we're looking for, the 5 minute, you know, it doesn't look like it's going to give us too much pullback. And the 30 minute has push. Yeah, so I mean, this all looks like it wants to keep pushing up. So it's a very, you know, very interesting spot here, but we want to be greedy. So if we go back, we're going to take a quick look at our trading section here, right? So this is inside our BitNext account. And we can see the pullbacks that we're getting here. So we want to aim for these lower levels, right? So like this on this pullback, we're going to want to see something in this lower level. We want to get a little more greedy, probably even go down to this section. And this is just because even though you have a trade that you are finding, the only way to really make a trade work is to get the best possible price. And right now these lower levels are looking like the price that we want, so maybe 33.50. So that's kind of what we're waiting for. And allowing this to reset will allow us to get the best price possible, right? Because we do have our 2 hour at the top, our 3 hour, fine. Our 3 hour is kind of pushing across the side there. So a lot of times you don't want to jump into a trade that's already kind of like had some of the meat pushed up. We can see here we've had some good movement here. So we want to let this kind of like reset itself, right? So let's go over some basic resets, right? So one of the resets is on a moon indicator, right? So on the moon indicator, one of our resets are basically this. So once you get, and this is the trade that we want, normally once you break positive, it's going to retest, and then that's your entry point right there. So these are two entry points that we could have got earlier on this trade, which would have been amazing, and then this entry point here. So what we're looking for here is we'd like this to pull back another time and then get with that momentum there, right? So those are the areas that would have been great trades for us to get into, and I'll show you basically where those trades would have like been really good for us to get in. So I'm gonna just turn these up, and you can see when these start to head the correct direction, these are the trades that we wanted to have, and we just weren't watching it at that time. And you can see based on the charts up here, these turn up entries end up being the nice spikes of the day, right? So you see how those spikes, and then the last one was right here. So once we have all that in there, you know, we got to realize that we're coming off of a spike. So we didn't get the trade that we wanted right away. So now we have to be a little more disciplined, and we have to just expect that, you know, the cycle has to run its course. I know it's hard to do because sometimes you don't want to miss a trade, but honestly, it's like you're going to get the same trade. Excuse me. You're going to get the same trade multiple times, right? So this trade is going to pull back. It's going to come back, and it needs to touch these areas here. It needs to come down here and set up, and it has to have where we need a 30-minute pullback here. So we're gonna wait on this trade, even though it looks it's getting to kind of where we want to go, but we're gonna look for these lower entries here, right? So the thing for us would be once it breaks through these 2-minute sections. You see how these perforated lines are right there? Those are the channels right there, right? So that channel right there is breaking through. So on this channel, we're just going to allow this to play its course. We want to see this come down and play off this channel here, right? So an extension of this channel would simply be something like this. So we would be looking for an entry about $33. So that right now would be the way to hold. Now, guys, I know a lot of time. Ems, what up, baby? Let me invite you up, big dog. Talk about that silver life. So the reason why, guys, just kind of give you a tip here is you have to master the ability of being greedy when it comes to your entry, because that is the only way. That's the difference between winning and losing a trade. And this really comes down to leverage, how much you're using. I use 20 to 30x leverage, so my trades have to be a little more greedier than most. If you want to jump it, some people say jump a trade, or, you know, get into a trade a little bit early or take risk. What happens is you have to use lower leverage to sacrifice your position, right? So for me, I'd rather just play a higher entry position with higher leverage so that we can get in there. All right, so here we just have this pullback. It looks like, you know, that's what we're looking for. The 2 minutes is kind of biting there. It might hold this level where it's at right here as well, but we want to see this kind of cycle through. So the very first thing is on these time frames, it really depends on what time frame you're running, right? So currently this is a 3 minute. We want something more, a little more meatier, like the 10 minute. So for sure, I would let the 10 minute reset. So looking at that 10 minute again, I can see that we're kind of in the same area that we want to be. We're looking for the 33 hit right there. So $33, it seems to be the move that we're looking for. So this is definitely pulling back. We got a 15-minute pullback as well. If that pulls back, we could probably even get into a 32.74 position. But yeah, it looks like that's pretty much where it's going to be. Another thing that I like to use here, this is an indicator that we're testing. This is called an algo. This indicator is about $1,500. So we're testing it out, making some adjustments to their settings. But what I've noticed about their settings is their entry is always about, it's always too high, but their stop loss seems to be the correct entry, right? So technically on a 15 minute, we could probably be looking in this section here, 32.25 as our actual entry. But that seems to be the average for them. They seem to be off by that margin. So right now we're just working on that. Something else that we're looking for here is, can the volume break through here? So here's our 30 minute. So if you guys how many people use 30-minute time frames? Hit ones in the chat. You guys, what time frames are you guys using? Do you use 30-minute? I like to see the 30-minute and the 45 as my main time frames, simply because I like to trade with the 1 hour, and the 15-minute is kind of like the setup trade, right? So by using the 30-minute and the 45, I can get in between the 15 and the 45. And what I'm seeing here is that we're topping off here, and we're just getting into a section where it looks like we're probably going to reject here. I'm seeing a lot of moons. We have a 30-minute moon here that should trigger a good buy, but right now it seems to be, it hasn't triggered yet. So this is kind of where I'd be thinking that this is probably going to go into a short here and pull this back. We actually might be rotating the other direction. The second thing is that I'm looking for the RSIs to show me, like, as far as the relative, this is just sentiment, like who's buying, who's selling. Right now, currently still kind of moving on the upside. The 5-minute is starting the downward movement, the downward trend. And I'm thinking that because it hasn't rejected off of the top of the 5-minute, which is, see here you hit your higher high, and then you get a lower high, and then you get another lower high, and then this is normally the breakout. But what happened here is it broke up and it failed to actually reach its peak here. So it looks like we're starting to, you know, find a lower channel here, right? Weakness in here. So I think if it doesn't get its momentum in the next hour or so, we're probably gonna have a nice pullback on this, on hyper here. Matter of fact, it's building into a nice short here. Let me take a look here. Sometimes you're looking for a particular type of trade, and you start looking for it to do something in a certain direction, right? So a lot of times what we say is, you know, if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, then you know what it's going to do, right? And that's where we start kind of moving in the opposite direction. But so far, you see here the lines that we just drew earlier. We're looking for these entries. We're flowing through these lines here. So this is more than likely going to end up being a very continuous pullback here. So this is why you don't want to jump in a trade, even though you look at a trade and you're like, okay, this is building momentum. It looks good. We have a 4-hour trade coming in. We have a 30-minute trade coming in. We have all these options of these what we call moons. But when you see it to where it doesn't, like that 30-minute isn't registering, that's what we call a rejection. I wish they had an in-between scenario where, you know, you had a 15-minute, 30-minute candle. I wish there was like a 22-minute candle, a 20-minute candle, right? Because that's the real data. Now what I can see here is that we've rejected off of the 30 once, twice, 3 times. It's starting trying to fight that line up here, and it's just getting rejected off of here. So and what this is guys, I mean, to understand the rejections, right, is very simple. It's not a magical level, right? It's just a line, right? It's a line that everyone kind of like drew up here, and it's very easy to do. But this is where people are setting their sells and their limits and their sell-offs, and it's just retail investors. Now, should this go up? Yeah, it should have continued going up. But retail investors a lot of times will set their sell limits in these areas, and they'll cause, you know, markets to kind of move a little bit differently. But we do have this 30-minute moon here, right? Down here, there's this 30-minute moon that we're waiting for. It looks like it wants to reject, right? You see how it's rejecting there? And then, so everything looks good for volume-wise. It's just falling short of actually pushing through. So we know what we're looking to happen. It's just unfortunate that we're not getting the results that we're looking for. So we have to start thinking the opposite direction. So now we have our pullbacks coming in. We're obviously going to pull back through these levels here. So the next level pullback is, you know, the easy 15-minute pullback. The hold on the 15-minute is probably going to be in this area here, about 32.80, for the hold. If it breaks 32.80, then we'll see the next level of the hold, which would be a little bit lower in this area here, probably about 31.44. So those are the two levels right now. This is why we can't take a long. This is why we can't take a long right now, because we just have to let these, pullbacks happen. This is kind of where when you're setting yourself up and piecing it together, you have to kind of let it play out. So the long on hyper is going to have to wait until we get this pullback here and we get back to where the volume kind of like plays out. So we're just hitting a level here where retail investors are buying and selling all at the same time, inconsistent with like what they should be doing. So we're going to see some type of stagnant or sideways movement through here until we get some resets here, right? So this is why when you're trading, you're going to want to let the 10-minute reset at least. We talked about the 30-minute, reset. This is still pushing up. We still look for this 10-minute push up. The long still looks good here. It's just a matter of letting them all reset. And the reason why we're looking long here is because when we look at our 2-hour, we're pushing up on our 2-hour. You can see that our 4-hour is going into a moon, which is the trade that we want, right? So this is where when we start to watch this price, we want to see where the price is going. What I mean by watching the price, right? You see the price right there? See how it's holding the 33.52? And a lot of times after you get that big, we had two levels of breakdown here. So this is where we'll start building momentum here, right? So this is where when you're looking for your long, are you going to short or long? We're going to go long here. When you're looking for your long, you want to let that pullback happen so that you can get your price. Now we were looking for a 33.50, which is where we're at now. We actually got a lower level pullback here, which was nice. This is why you can be greedy. A lot of times people don't realize like they're not. See, there was a tip over here, this little wick that hit there earlier in the day, which was set up at about 33.34. Now that actually went below that on this move here. So this is where you can, getting greedy. It's not really that big of a deal to get greedy on these, because it does pay off. Because 80 to 90% of the time, think of it like this: 80% of the time, it's going to pull back on you no matter what, right? So you want to play the odds, play the pullbacks, go for longs on there, but just wait for the position to actually pull back. What am I running? A 20x. So we're trading into the trade that we want is real simple. Are you in a long? All right, so your open position to be on the left. All right, there you go. Go to your stop loss. Make sure you put a stop loss in there. Stop losses, depending on what you're normally running, about 25%, depending on how much it is. This will be broken down on how you're trading your bag. So this is a new coin that we've been trading all week called Hype. So the trade that we're trading into, just so we can have it all set up. What up, Joe? Is trading into a moon, right? So here's a 4-hour moon that we have. This is the trade that we want to trade into right here, this little circle, right? Now this is normally a bigger trade than normal because the bigger time frames just give us bigger rewards, more volume at that time. So we're waiting for this to turn green right here. Now in the midst of that, we have other moons that we already have. Here's your 3-hour that already hit. Here's the 2-hour that hit over here. So these all these moons have paydays that come with them, right? And we have our 1 hour that hit here. So a lot of times we want to trade with a 1 hour and a 4 hour moon.
So is it so?
All right, let's see.
It should say.
Yeah. So to double check it, right? So you just go here. You could just click here, and then it'll pull back out for you. You could make adjustments on there.
Gotcha.
Return on investment. Okay. All right, so we're gonna roll this up to about 20%.
I don't know if I clicked this right.
So you can focus on him. Alright.
Nah, I'm just checking you out here. Okay, you're good there. Just making sure the amount was correct. Okay, perfect. All right, so here. Okay, here's your positioning, right? So when you're okay, first you're gonna trade this. Go isolated. Okay, percentages are here. So you're looking for your pullback. If you don't know the price, you just go like this, and then it does it. So you want to be a little bit higher than the current price, just because it has to buy into it. So it would be 3.7, and then this would be your opening. And now we're just going down here. I said about 25. We look for 60%. There you go. Confirm. So there's your stop loss, which is at the bottom of that last pullback. And then your target will be up there. All right, so and we're just setting up our trades here, guys. We're going long on this here. So we're trading with the 45-minute. You can see we're on the upside here. The RSI is pushing up on the top side as well. So these two things here are just going to let us know that people are buying. The sentiment is that this wants to go long. The volume's coming together here. 30-minute. We see it's going sideways here, so it's trying to push through here, and we're sitting at the top of the breakout, right? So normally this trade you have opportunities here where you'll see a breakout, it'll pull back and retest, right? So normally pull, breakout, retest, and then a move up. So as this starts to break out, another entry would be on the retest, probably around 34.65 ish. After it breaks through this top channel here, all depending on the amount of push that it gets. This is why when you're looking into a trade, you want to always just give yourself the opportunity to just get the pullback, right? So the reason why you always do that is because if you do what's called a 10 trade review and you review how many times you're in a trade, a lot of times you get into early, it pulls back to a better price. If you look at that, it's probably 8 out of 10 times that happens to you. It's more than likely it's probably 10 out of 10 for you. And that's where, you know, getting greedy on the entries are the best things you can do. That's automatic gains, right? If you enter up here and it pulls back down to here, that loss is actually you losing money, right? If you already set your prices in these lower areas, every time those hit, you're already up. What does that mean? Let's say you enter a trade and you get into here, right? And it pulls back from your entry down to here, right? That could be a difference of 20-30% in the gain category. You can go negative before you go positive. And really what's happening is that those are gains that you're not getting, right? So by getting in early, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're actually costing yourself money, right? So if, let's say you have 10 trades, and out of those 10 trades, every time you entered, it pulled back. Let's say you're doing a $100 trade. And every time you enter that trade, it pulled back $20, and then it went up to $130, right? And you closed out. Now, if you would have set your entry $20, you know, less, looking for that lower entry, those average gains go from $30 to $50. It's a big difference. It's almost doubling your profit when you do that. And that's the difference of, you know, how to increase your gains at higher levels by simply playing the game of, you know, entries. So that makes sense, chat. Hit the ones in the chat that makes sense. So if you're doing, so this is hype, guys. We're in this hype coin here. Not financial advice. It's just a coin that we've been tracking in the Discord. If you go to the Discord there, link is in bio. You can check everything out. You can see that the guys have been kind of like running all types of different coins in there, but they've been crushing it over the last, you know, they're always crushing it in there. So if you're learning how to trade, this is all free. Link is in bio. All information's in my TikTok bio. If you want to find out anything, reach out, get a hold of me. All information's in the bio. But yeah, breaking this down is just going over the simplicity. So what we do is when we hop on here while we're looking at a trade, just kind of like explaining to you like how we simplify entries and trades, right? The number one thing that you can do to help yourself out is simply get better entries. Very simple concept. It's not that hard. Here's an exercise for you, right? So an exercise for you to basically make sure that you get good entries, right? It's called a 10 trade review. And all you're going to do is whatever you do, right? You should at least have this. You should have this down. When you enter a trade, right? You should have steps and some type of process to why you enter a trade, right? Meaning like this happens, and then I do this, right? Those are the steps to you getting into your trade. Once you have those steps down, right, your system or your strategy or whatever you have, every time you repeat that process, it gives you a result, right? So that result should give you numbers, meaning how much it went negative before it went positive and how much it went positive before the trade ended, right? So if you enter a trade and it goes down, let's say you have $100 and you get into a trade and you watch your trade and whatever leverage you're using, right? There's all types of strategies that you can adjust to. But let's say you're doing, let's say you're not doing any leverage, right? Let's just keep it simple. So you don't have any leverage. You enter at 100. You enter $100, and you notice that the trade goes backwards, down instead of up for you, and you end up at $80. And then the trade turns around and it goes back up to 100, which is even, and then it gets to 110, 120, and then boom, that's where the trade goes back down to 80. And you realize that that's a top and a bottom, right? So your bottom is $80 in your money. Your top is $120 on your money, right? Those are the averages, right? Those are the channels that you're in. And you're like, okay, so the next time I go up to 120, I'm going to close this trade because that's my top piece. Now, if you know that you're pulling back to $80 every time you do a trade, that means you're about 20% off on your trade. So your entry price is $20 too high, right? So when you go to enter, if you start calculating those lower sides into your natural entry, and you can turn those into your gains. So let's say that you mark it off and say, well, if I normally enter at $34 right here, instead, I always know it pulls back. I'm going to put my entry down here. Right, so you pull your entry down to this lower section, and that way you're already starting off with a better entry, better possibility, more odds of getting, you know, a better entry, which will give you better trades on there. So it's very simple, guys. So here you can use all types of things. You have channels, top channel, middle channel. This is your parallel channel. Here, like I said, what we're looking for is if we go to a 10-minute, which is what we normally look for, the 10-minute pullback. The 10-minute pullback says that on average, the price right now that's probably going to be a good entry is going to be somewhere around $33. If it breaks through that 31, be a little bit further down, about 31.64 is the entry that we would be looking for on this pullback. We are looking for a 30-minute trade here. We can see here now the 30-minute moon's going awry. So this is going to put us in a situation where shorts on this side are going to be closed, or longs on this side are going to be closed out, and you'd be more interested in getting into a situation where you have a short position until this can reset and actually get itself put to where it wants. So that's pretty much how you use your parallel channels, man. Don't be afraid to get greedy. Don't think you're not in a trade if you miss it. The odds are if you pull back and get greedy on these entries, you'll make more money in the long run, because the trades that do take off on you that you don't get in are going to be very few, and the ones that do pull back to the lower levels to give you a better entry are going to double your profits, which are going to allow you to get yourself in a position where they get you into a position where you're set up a lot better. Let me see you right here. Yeah, I'm just gonna, so here, see how it says market? So your quantity, let's say you're closing out, right? You'd put 100, and then market kind of gives you, it's the price all over. So what this will do here is if you take this, go last price and then close, it'll be a more consistent price of where you're currently at there.
They're asking what trading app is that?
So what we do is we use we use BitNext, right? So we have a VIP with BitNext where we have cash back, rewards. So going to a short here. Yeah. So BitNext is where we use. So if you go to TikTok, all the information's there. You can click right here, guys. We got a little link in the bio right there. Click on that and then look for the trading view, the VIP side, which is BitNext. The reason why we use BitNext, not financial advice, promos or whatever, but it's because we get cash back, cheaper fees, easy to use, and we have a video on how to use it there. It's really, really, really simple on there. All right, so with us, we can see that we're getting into a short position here, simply because we can't get the volume that we need. So we're gonna play these pullbacks here.
So I have to.
Yeah, so if you're doing a short, yeah, do something small. So everything that you have in your account is this down here, right? So you're gonna trade just small amounts of it, so something like 20%, right? So then this has to be lower than that. So you can go like that real quick, but make that 40. Okay, that's good. And then you do 20% of what you're doing, and then you would hit enter, and then that'll be your short. And it pops up, that's your leverage, and now you're just gonna do your stop loss. So our normal stop loss would be about 20%, and then take profit about 60. All right. Invite, what's up, Ducks? Yeah, guys, so anything you want to learn, everything is right on the bio. Just go check it out right here. You can see right there on the bio. We got a link for you to check out get you all the information you need. The Discord's all free. Everything's free for you guys to get in, get information. It's just a big community of trading, going over the basics. But if you guys do want to get better, like I said, simply become more greedy on your entries. Take evaluation of so you should have. Sometimes I think I jump ahead because the basics is where we have to focus. So you should have a strategy, okay? And what I mean by that is you should have a system and a strategy of how you trade, meaning that you trade based on certain time frames and you trade based on certain things happening during these time frames, and because of that it creates a trade, right? So something should happen which would trigger where you would say, oh, here's a possible trade. Then something else should happen which would be a confirmation of a trade. And then the third step would be how you're entering the trade, right? And then once you enter the trade, you get data, right? Meaning that how low did it go, or how much negative did you go in your trade before it went positive, and then how positive did it go, right? And really what you're doing is you should be tracking one thing, right? How negative does it go before it goes positive? Does that make sense? Hit ones in the chat. So if you get, and this is what I'm talking about right here. Okay. So here's the trade, right? So right now in the trade that we just entered, because we're going short right here, right? That's our profits. Normally unrealized profits and losses go negative too. So if you, on average, when you enter a trade, let's say that your trade goes negative $100, on average every time you enter, right? A certain number, a percentage, or whatever it is. So whatever it does, if it goes backwards 1%, 2%, whatever it does, whatever the negative is, if you have that set up already, then what you need to do is just calculate that into your entry, right? And what I mean by that is, if I'm entering a trade, right? So let's say, that my entry right here, right? And so I normally enter a trade, and whatever system, strategy, I don't know what you guys are doing, whether it's Gala fans, Elliott waves, whatever you're doing, right? Whatever system and strategy you have for your system, right? And your entry is normally right here. And before it goes up, your entry normally comes down. And I'll make this red. And it'll come down, and it normally comes down to this level here, right? And then, so this is your entry. I'll make this green. Okay. And then this is your pullback. And then from your pullback, it normally goes up, right? So if you calculate 10 trades, right? Listen to what I'm saying. So if every time your system or your strategy says enter now, and you guys enter here, and it pulls back, right? So let's say that on average, this pullback is 25%. Okay? So there's a 25% pullback every time you enter. Sometimes it pulls back 30%. Sometimes it pulls back 20%. And sometimes it pulls back 25%, right? So these are your average pullbacks, right? So all you do is count them out, right? So if you have You know, 3 times it does 25, 3 times it does 30, 4 times it does 20. Just take the average. Okay, which means your average pullback is going to be at least 20%. That makes sense? Hit ones in the chat if that makes sense. So if every time you enter a trade and it does a pullback of 25% to 30% and 20%, right? These are averages. That makes sense? Hit ones in the chat if that makes sense. All you're going to do is figure out your average, right? So if you know that every time out of 10 times, let's say you do 10 trades, 8 times it pulled back 20, 25, or 30%. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take your entry that you normally do and just go ahead and calculate a 20% pullback automatically. And you're going to move your entry to this new area here, which already calculates the 20% pullback. See what I'm saying? So now, what's going to happen for you is that average 20% that you guys are not getting paid for, you are now going to bring that into your normal entry trade, and you're just going to apply it early. So now, what this is going to do for you, 8 out of those 10 trades that you were going up, this is going to add 20% to your trade by doing this one thing, adding the 20% pullback entry. It's literally that simple. That makes sense? Is that hard to do? Just incorporate that into your position already so that you're just getting those gains already. Randy, what up, Myers? So that'll help you guys out. That'll put you in a position where you're already, calculating those losses into your move, so that you already have it set up to where those are basically already becoming gains for you. And that is the simple 20% pullback entry. Right, that should help you guys out pretty easily. Most of you guys should just do that anyways. Just calculate a 20% pullback, and that's all based on your